Nostalgia always rebounds in people's minds, and they always want to go back to the classics. However, we've already played those. We want new games in those style, and we just want something that's great. However, we haven't really gotten all that many of them. But fortunately, we did get this one. Michael here with an impressions review for Sonic Mania, which is truly a callback to the old Sonic games. I'm just going to go ahead and start the intro because I was too slow there. God, I tried 3 times to make that quick enough, but I wasn't going to be able to. But yeah, basically Sonic Mania came out, and I'll admit it was one of my top 5 games of 2017. This review is quite a bit late, which is somewhat of a good thing and somewhat of a bad thing. For one, nostalgia glasses are definitely off. I have a ton of fucking complaints about this game. Like, so many. I can't even make a list in this video because it would be too long, but I'm not going to nitpick. I'm going to talk about the generalization of it because overall, this is an absolutely fantastic game and it definitely deserved my top 5 slot in my top 5 games of 2017. However, a lot of people have looked at it with nostalgia glasses and haven't really looked too much in depth to it. So I want to go ahead and give it a full review because I feel like it deserves it. So first off, let's go ahead and search into the options. I'll get into gameplay a little bit later, but here you get your video options. Now there is one thing to mention. When it launched, it actually had a bunch of problems with the Nuvo and some online features that just weren't working, and it kept having screw-ups with the Steam overlay for some reason, and those have been fixed. Those were fixed a long time ago, and so if you've seen my PC overview video, that's a lot out of date. Like, that is out of date. Hella bad. And so, yeah, basically, if you want up-to-date information, I'm going to go over it real quick. But yeah, Denuvo is no longer a problem. That's not even a situation anymore. The screen filtering is still the same. I think it's the best CRT-looking mimic stuff, but I personally don't like it. But if you want your game to look like a CRT for whatever reason, this actually looks pretty good. The Sharp is the one I'd prefer if I was going to use it like that. But if you're sitting close to a monitor like I am, it just looks ugly. So I prefer the none because I just like sharp pixels. I've gotten used to it these days. And then you get window size, which doesn't affect full screen. Then you get Windows border, which makes it borderless or not, and then you get full screen, and obviously you have a bunch of selections for resolution and stuff like that. It does go up to 1440 and supposedly 4K. It just scales it up. It doesn't really do anything special with it. And then you get VSync and triple buffering, which I just have as that. Not really that big of a deal. You get sound. You only get music and sound effect sliders, which is really all you need in this game. The sound is pretty balanced pretty well anyways. And then you get controls. Now you'll notice that you can't rebind the controls here. That's actually because you need the Steam overlay to do so. It uses Steam's big picture mode and controller configuration. Now mine just crashes and doesn't work if I try to use that, and it kept resetting my settings, and so it would make it so that B was accept and A was cancel, and it just kept screwing things up over and over again. And if I ever alt-tabbed or my controller would disconnect and I'd reconnect it, it would reset my controls again. So I've just disabled the Steam overlay in this game, and it's fixed that problem. So keep aware that is still a problem in this. Then you get multiple languages, not that big of a deal. Not too many options here. And then you also have a multiplayer mode and a time attack mode. I won't be going over these 2 modes. One, I haven't actually played the competitive mode, unfortunately, but I will be going over Mania mode, which is the main mode. Now, I've actually played through the game as Sonic and Tails here, and I've also got a Knuckles and a Tails save. I'll go over them a little bit later, but let's go ahead and go into the core gameplay, because the core gameplay is what's absolutely fantastic about this. This is 110% nostalgia. Now, Sonic Mania is not just recreated levels. In fact, what it is it took some levels, some old classic levels, and it ended up kind of rehashing it and making them better and everything. So it kind of meshed the first stage. So, for example, this Green Hill stage, for example, we're going to go through the very beginning of it, and then we're also going to end up going through the Act 2 of the stage. And then the next stage after this is a completely new, unique stage that uses mechanics that were seen in these sort of stages as well, which is actually fantastic. Sonic also has a new ability as well. So Tails comes back with his flying ability, and you can actually activate it with the gamepad as well. So you can just jump and hit up, and so you don't need a second gamepad or anything like that to do that. I believe you could do that also on one of the Genesis versions. I don't remember which one it is. I think it was Sonic 3 or something along those lines. I don't think you could do it in Sonic 2. I don't remember if you could or not, but it's been a while, so you might have been able to. And then Sonic also has this drop dash, as well as Knuckles can glide and climb and stuff like that, which I don't feel like the levels were particularly well designed for Knuckles and Tails specifically. I feel like the game is best played as Sonic and Tails combination, and you can also control Tails with the second gamepad here. I'm going to waste my invulnerability, but yeah, so I just have my keyboard and stuff like that, and so you can plug in a second gamepad, or you can just use the keyboard and just control him wherever you want, and then he'll just start following. Just like in the old classics, he'll just start following you again when nobody's doing that. That was a special stage. I already have all the Chaos Emeralds on this. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I do have a lot of complaints about the special stages in this game. In fact, they're probably my least favorite part of the game. But of course, let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay. So yeah, overall, the stage and the way this game feels, it feels like a really well-polished Sonic game. Like, it is an absolutely superb momentum platformer. Like, it is the best momentum platformer that has ever existed. And I do not feel bad saying that, because it just feels incredible to play. It does have some hiccups here and there. There are a ton of glitches in this game, and I have been apparently extremely unlucky when it comes to glitches, because most of the people I've talked to are like, I've never run into any glitches, but I've fallen through the map on this game at least 20 times. I have gotten stuck on movable platforms 20 plus times. It is absolutely ridiculous the number of bugs I've ran into in this game. And that includes when the game launched, I was having problems with the controller not even working half of the time, which was just absolutely infuriating. And it really killed off the beginning launch for the game for me. Thankfully, none of the glitches really destroy the overall experience. The game is still fantastic, and apparently those bugs are rare. I just happen to hit them at just the right spot, and I can't really replicate it very easily. I was while I was doing some test recording before recording this, because I always make sure my capture is working before I do an impressions review. But, oh, and I almost ran into that special stage. We'll talk about that in a second, because that's really annoying as well. But I did actually get stuck on one of the movable platforms that just goes back and forth on the last stage, to where you're supposed to use it to get over and cross the little chasms and such. And I just got stuck on the corner of it and then just randomly fell. And I was like, all right, that was a thing. And so it happens. It's not something that destroys the experience. It's just unfortunate if you end up running into it a lot repeatedly. Like, every time I was playing this game back during launch, it happened over and over again. And maybe they've patched it since then, and maybe it doesn't happen nearly as much. But like I said, I just ran into one of those bugs earlier when I was doing a test recording. And so they still happen every once in a while. But it's not like those didn't happen in the original Sonic games. And that's the main point here, is that this is probably the best 2D Sonic game. It does a lot of things that are unique and interesting as well. As in, all the bosses are really, really cool and interesting, and they come back and call back and stuff like that. They have a ton of stuff to where it's just like, I'm just going to cheat this guy because he's kind of annoying to fight. Oh, I got too far away. I'm just going to run into him over and over again, because this is actually like the fastest way to kill him, is just to get behind him and just jump on him over and over again. Which is kind of funny. I just screwed it up there, but yeah, you can just kill him by jumping onto his back. He only takes 5 hits. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that they do for nostalgia, which is absolutely great for fans. However, this is where we start getting to the negatives of it. While this is the best momentum platformer that we've ever had, it is absolutely fantastic in the way it's built and designed. That doesn't mean there's not hiccups. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's like retro, and it's like, you know, going back and calling back. It's like, oh, hey, look at this. Haha, this was in the other games, remember? And a lot of that stuff feels like it's just forced to be in there, and it just separates from the rest of the game, because so much of the game is just absolutely fantastic that every time it hiccups, it just doesn't feel proper. And there's one of the cutscenes as well. They're unskippable, which is also another frustrating point. Just weird design missteps that would have just vastly improved the overall experience. Just having those cutscenes there, like that cutscene was like half the stage or half the length of a freaking level, and that didn't need to be there. I've already seen that 20 times. I should be able to skip it at this point, and there's no option to end up making a skippable cutscene option or anything along those lines, which is annoying. One thing I will say though, that, you know, the design, you know, non-missteps, the ones that they actually made correctly, such as the drop dash for Sonic coming back, which is super, super nice, is the fact that, you know, it actually ends up making some of the original design hiccups, like where you end up going up a ramp and then you just don't have enough speed, and it's like, oh, well, now I just got to run backwards for like an hour and then run back to it, you know, and just try again. Instead, you can just now drop dash, which is super, super awesome. And so, yeah, I'm actually going to exit out and go on Tails to finish this level, just so I can show off a little bit of Tails gameplay, and I can show off the special stages that are super freaking annoying. But yeah, another one of the hiccups that I see in this game a lot is that, one, there's a lot of old problems that also reappear because of that nostalgia. And I don't know if it's because of nostalgia that some of those hiccups come back. And I can't necessarily think of too many specifics at the moment, but there is one that particularly annoyed me all the way there, because these are the types of things that you don't necessarily see until, you know, you actually run into it. It's just one of those things where you're going to run into it once or twice, and it's going to be really annoying. And that's mostly what's wrong with this game. It's just a bunch of small little tiny annoyances. It's also not a game that I particularly enjoy playing in long periods of time either. It is one of those games I just kind of play off the cuff, just be like, oh yeah, I want to play it for like an hour or something like that. And that's what I did with the original Sonics as well, which isn't particularly a problem. But one thing that I did notice, though, is that there's a lot of checkpoints, and this was a problem in the originals as well. I just missed the checkpoint thing that I wanted to go to, so we're just going to go into the water. That's perfectly fine. It's not where I wanted to go, but that's where we're going anyways. I could have flown up to where I wanted to go, but that's fine. We'll skip it for now. But yeah, like, there's certain checkpoints to where you'll go into the checkpoint. Oh yeah, I forgot Tails can swim, because he's going to get crushed. That's fine. But you'll get to a checkpoint, and then you'll just run straight off from there, because, you know, this game is about speed, and you want to get to where you're going as fast as possible. But in certain sections, if you just go as fast as possible, you die. Exactly like that. Every single time. There are a ton of checkpoints that are exactly like that. If I just start here, speed dash down, and just go, it will kill me every single time that I do that. Now, obviously I just sat there for a second so that it wouldn't kill me because obviously I want to get this video along. But yeah, there's a ton of points like that. There's also weird points to where if you're standing on a spot, it'll like crush you. Like, hold on, this is actually another section that I can end up showing off right here. The character model is actually, the kill box is actually taller on Sonic than it is for any of the other characters. So you saw how I was able to fly or sit right there for Tails. If I do that with Sonic, I end up dying. Same thing with Knuckles. The hitbox for the character is actually larger than the actual sprite, which causes a lot of problems when you end up getting into sections like this one, which is super, super frustrating. See, there it is again. And I just gamed over, so I don't really care. I'm just going to go back to Sonic and Tails and select a different level. Actually, is there a way I can just go to a special stage? I think I can. You know what? I'm just going to go to the special stage on Tails, so that's fine. There's also, frick, what was I going to talk about? There was another one that I was going to talk about. One, lives don't really make much sense here, but once again, that's just the way that platformers are, so I'm just not even going to comment on that. I feel like lives is an outdated system, but at the same time, lives just send you back to the beginning of the stage, so it's not really that big of a deal. It's just a way to, moderate the checkpoint usage and stuff like that, so it's not that big of a deal. But overall, like, it's just, there's so many weird small moments as well. Like bullets, for example, will end up spawning inside of enemies before they end up shooting the bullet. And so if you end up going up to an enemy and trying to roll into it, you'll still end up getting hit because you didn't like roll early enough or something along those lines to where it's just like, oh, well, now I just end up running straight into the bullet that was inside the robot that I just killed. And so like, it's just weird. So like those small ground things, I'm trying to think of a way to display it. I can't think of a spot because I just now skipped the spot to where I would have ended up showing it off. But basically inside those enemies, like they'll start their attack animation. As soon as they start their attack animation, there is a chance that they'll spawn here. Now here's my least favorite part of the game, which is the special stages. So this is how you end up unlocking the Chaos Emerald. So you're supposed to chase this thing, and for one, I don't really like the aesthetic. They went for I think it was Sega Saturn is where they were going for, but you're basically supposed to collect these little orbs, and you run faster and faster, and you're supposed to get to the little Chaos Emerald and stuff. And these, I don't feel like these are designed well, and one, they actually break up the gameplay a lot. Same thing with the previous stages. You need to also collect rings or else you run out of timer and stuff. I found these extremely frustrating. I didn't find these fun at all. I thought the first like 2 of them were really cool, and I was like, oh hey, yeah, I like this. This is kind of cool. And then after I had played them over and over again, I was like, all right, I don't like these, and I don't feel like they ever get any better. And maybe that's just personal preference. I just don't think that this fits the rest of the game, and it feels like it breaks up the actual gameplay loop that I enjoy personally a ton. Other people love these. Like I said, it might just be a personal preference thing to where I just prefer the actual like song. God damn, I did that twice. But I actually enjoy the 2D Sonic sort of platforming stuff as well. So yeah, you're supposed to go in here, you end up running out of time, and then you basically fail, or you run off the map. I don't know if I can run off the map on this one, so I basically either have to run out the time or catch up to it. But the more orbs you collect, the faster you go. Once you get to a certain speed, it's just absolutely frustrating to get around some of these stages. This one's not too bad. This one's pretty easy. I could have already reached it if I didn't run into that corner multiple times, but yeah, you get to Mark 3, and then you're just like, I got it. And then boom, you get the Chaos Emerald. It does this little thing. And it's a nice way to sort of mix up the gameplay, but at the same time, I found that it doesn't fit the rest of the game, and I don't find it enjoyable to play personally. Some people like it, like I said, but I just don't. I do not enjoy it. Now, one thing that is kind of nice, though, is when you go through it, you don't have to go back and like find every single secret area. There's tons of those secret rings everywhere, and so there's more than there are Chaos Emeralds. So you can end up doing a single run and easily getting them within a single run, but you can also go back to it. So if I went back to, I'd have to play a different stage, but if I went back and like played like stage 1 and then went back to it and played it again, then it would actually end up going through and, allowing me to go and recollect that, which is kind of nice as well. One other complaint about the design of this game, and, it sounds like I'm getting a little nitpicky at this point because I'm not 100% clear on what I'm talking about, because it really is, like, very minor things most of the time. Stuff that doesn't affect you the entire gameplay through. It's just, like, happens once or twice, and you're like, why is that a thing? It's just so surprising to run into those elements when the rest of the game has been so fantastic. I want to go up this one because I can jump up there. Yay! This is one of my favorite stages, by the way. This is from Sonic CD. They redid this one, and it's really, really cool, and I love the way they ended up doing it. Also, some of the bosses as well, some of the complaints about the bosses is it's different from the old Sonic games, to where the old Sonic games were just kind of try and hit him as fast as possible, and you had like hit ranges and stuff. This game instead, what it does is it does the old kind of newfound platformer system, to where basically every boss has like timers, and so it's like, oh, now it's time to hit him, and then you got to hit him, and then you got to wait until you can hit him again, and I personally don't enjoy that. Some of the bosses were creative, however, and that's what really made it interesting, is the fact that the bosses were kind of creative. However, the boss for this stage specifically, the mini boss, just isn't interesting to play against, and there's one boss to where you're in the studio area, and it's just nothing but wait timers, and then once you wait, you just hit Eggman, and then that's it, and that's really cool, I guess. It's just like, it's bland, unfortunately, so not all the bosses are particularly amazing, but overall, the majority of the bosses are extremely creative. The boss for the second stage is actually a little mini game. Sometimes you're actually doing something that's like, oh, hey, I remember back when this game was a popular thing, and then they ended up doing that thing, and it's like, haha, that's really, really cool. Or like they just end up mixing up the bosses really interestingly. Like they had they have Metal Sonic in this game, spoiler alert, and so they actually had a really interesting boss fight for him, but unfortunately his boss fight was once again ruined by a timer, because they just had it so that he was based off of some... Oh my god, I'm trying to jump and just failing. This is just my incompetence right now. Sorry about that. And for some reason, Sonic didn't grab onto the ring when he ran past it. And I do not know why. He was supposed to grab onto that ring, and he didn't. So that's just another one of the gameplay inconsistencies that I see in this game. And there is one other kind of hiccup, and I'm trying to get to a checkpoint so I can show you guys, but it is the checkpoint ones. Now, they do have the little rings. You saw the little stars that end up popping up above it, and this is going to be my final complaint on the game, and then everything else after that's going to be 100% positive, because I'm kind of like ragging on the game, even though I love this game. It's one of my favorite Sonic games, and so don't worry, I don't hate this game. I actually love it. It is one of my top 5 games of 2017, like, hands down. It was one of the best games I played last year. It is absolutely fantastic, but it does have these design hiccups that are kind of annoying. Now, before I get to a checkpoint, because apparently there's just no checkpoints in this freaking level anywhere, before I get to that point, what are the type of people that are going to enjoy this? Well, that actually comes down to one simple point. Anybody who likes platformers or momentum platforms is going to love this game. If you like Sonic games, fucking buy this game. You should already have it. Why are you watching a review months and months later after the game has come out? Like, you should already own this game if you like Sonic games. Like, this game is what the classic Sonic games were. No, it's not exactly it, and it does have some design hiccups here and there, but it's not particularly, perfect. Now, one thing I do want to say, last complaint, by the way, is these star things, when you run into it, it's a nice checkpoint thing from the second one. Oh, it ran out. But it forces you to run into those. So if you run into it, oh, here's another waiting boss. When you end up running into those, there are some times to where a checkpoint will be before a button, and when you try to hit the button, you'll just run into the stars, which will start up a special stage. The special stage then completely breaks the flow of the combat. So it's the blue orbs or blue spheres minigame, which I'm sure you guys remember from Sonic and Knuckles, and I don't think it was in Sonic 3. I think Sonic 3 was the slot machine. One of those two was like the slot machine thing. I think that was Sonic 3. And then Sonic and Knuckles had the whole, the get the blue balls or the blue spheres. Sorry, I like to make that joke. And so every once in a while you end up having to like push a button, and it's especially noticeable in some of these smaller like cave-like stages. And so there was the stage like the mine stage, which is a little bit later, which I won't show off in this video. It has many sections where there's a checkpoint and then there's a button directly above the checkpoint. In order to push that button, you have to run into the special stage, and it just forces you into a special stage. I don't like the special stages when I'm playing through the game, just because they are kind of nice. I actually like the special stage. I think the blue sphere stages are actually really, really fun. And apparently once you finish all of them, you actually unlock a bonus version of it to where actually it has like a bunch of puzzles and stuff like that into it, which is actually really, really cool. I actually like that idea. I haven't gotten that far because I just don't like playing them that much, but people have said that it does get better. However, when I'm actually playing the game in its base, play style like this, just kind of going through the stages, I don't like to play them because it just breaks up the gameplay flow. And it's just a huge kind of design misstep to make it so that you have to run into them most of the time. Because, in theory, you could ignore them, but when you end up running into a situation where you can't avoid running into it, or maybe an enemy ends up hitting you, and then you just end up falling into it, or maybe there's a platform that just slightly slides your hitbox over, or maybe you misjudge the hitbox, because the hitbox is slightly larger than Sonic, like I mentioned earlier. And so when you end up running into it, you're like, oh, hey, like, what the heck? And it just starts up one of those, and you just like, all right, I guess I'm doing this now. It's just fairly annoying. But overall, who is this game for? It's just for anybody that likes platformers. I will say this is one of the more difficult 2D platformers. One thing that's not necessarily a complaint, but rather an observation, is the fact that this game does not keep itself nearly as simple as the old Sonic games. My youngest sister is able to play the old Sonic games very, very well. She's able to go through them because the mechanics themselves are very easy to understand and you can grasp on them very, very quickly. And although those games were all about, speed and stuff like that, they had a lot of precision segments, and the majority of the game was about that precision. This game does focus a little bit more heavily on speed, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just, that was kind of annoying. It's kind of like just one of those things. It's just that's the design they decided to go through. Obviously, it does have some precision elements that we've shown here as well, but it does a good job of like keeping up with that whole classic idea of just, Sonic has to go. And so every single direction you go, no matter where you're at, it's just gonna go. And so you're gonna go, like, even if you take the most least efficient route where you miss a jump or you miss a jump pad or something along those lines, you're gonna be able to just keep going, which is really, really great. And it feels absolutely amazing. However, if you are somebody who's not quite accustomed to video games, you might find that it gets a little bit too quick or that it's changing pace a little bit too much. Here's a boss fight with Metal Sonic. I did mention Metal Sonic was in the game, and I guess we're fighting him now. I forgot he was on the stage. Well, I didn't forget he was on the stage. I just, forgot that we were going to get to him. But yeah, it's just, that is one of the things that you want to keep in mind when looking at this game, is it is kind of targeted towards Sonic fans, and so it assumes that you've played Sonic games. And so if you're not somebody who's particularly great at Sonic games, this game is probably going to kick your butt. But it is kind of nice that if you keep going, there's not really the big death penalty or anything along those lines. Like if you run out of lives, you just start back at the beginning of the stage. You're not going to run into a situation where it's like, oh my god, I can't believe I ran out of lives or whatever. It's just one of those situations where if you're buying this for like a younger viewer or something like that, then keep that in mind, that it might be a little bit more difficult for them to grasp, especially the boss fights, which require specific tactics to end up getting through. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and exit out before I spoil this boss fight, because I think that boss fight is kind of super annoying. There's wait timers on that one. But yeah, overall, this is an absolutely fantastic game, and it is... I wanted to go to a different stage. Whoops. Hold on, let me just go back. But overall, this is an absolutely fantastic game. Talking about the art style as well, I'll just kind of close all this out with just the art direction and the music, because the art in this game and the actual like style of it is absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna go here because I really like his remix. But Oyo Ocean, for example, like the redone levels and stuff like that, they've really did a good job of making it look like the old stages as well. Like it probably uses a lot of the old art assets, or at least copied from them. Oh, I just got smashed. That was my fault. But it does probably copy a lot of like old art assets and everything along those lines, which, is fine. And I think it actually carries over that nostalgia really, really well. And it uses it in a good manner rather than being like, hi guys, we have a pixel art style. And just, I did the same thing again because I'm not really 100% paying attention. But, it doesn't do it like, hi guys, we have a pixel art style. They use it for good reason because, they're remaking these levels and remaking you live through those experiences. And they're absolutely fantastic in the way they're drawn. And all the new artwork as well is just absolutely fantastic in the way that it's done. The music as well is probably one of my favorite soundtracks that Sonic has ever had. The guy that did most of it has done a lot of remixes as well of Sonic's, and I like all of his remixes, so maybe I'm a little bit biased there, but they did a fantastic job of making the old feeling come back while making it still a little bit modern. And I think that's the most important thing about this game, is that while it does end up having a lot of hiccups and a lot of callbacks to nostalgia that don't necessarily need to be there, that kind of make the gameplay a little bit underhanded in some cases, where they're like, we're going to choose nostalgia over gameplay. And I really hate it when games do that. That's why I don't really like the whole nostalgia craze, because I don't particularly play to that very much. I don't particularly play to the whole nostalgia view thing. I think a good aesthetic is just a good aesthetic, regardless of whether it's retro or not. And so I hate it when games do that. And so it's just really, really unfortunate for me personally to have this game kind of fall into that trap in several cases. Luckily, it doesn't affect the game too much, and it's easily ignorable after certain segments. Like, it's just like every once in a while I was like, oh, I got to deal with this cutscene, or like, oh yeah, this boss is a gimmick boss because they decided to reference this game or whatever. And it's like, that's fine, because overall the game is absolutely fantastic in everything that's put together. Its art direction is absolutely incredible. It feels like an old Sonic game, although modernized. It has a lot more personality, I will say. There's a lot more frames, and there's a lot more little kind of quirks and things along those lines in some of the animations that are just, it just plays into it really, really nicely. And I will say it doesn't feel particularly like an official Sonic game in some regards. There are some things that feel very, very indie about it. and some of the boss fights might be it, to where it's just like some of these design oversteps, maybe that's what it is. But at the same time, like, there's no reason nobody would consider this an official Sonic game. Like, this is an official Sonic game made by people that understand what Sonic was always about back in the classic era. This, Sonic team may not be interested in making the whole, 2D Sonic games anymore, but that's okay, because we have people that want to make them for them. And so they've done a really great job with that. And it's absolutely fantastic. So if you end up liking this video, and end up thinking the game looks amazing, go ahead and give it a shot. This is a game that, if you are a Sonic fan, you should be playing it, because it is a fantastic game. And I know some people have said in the past, like, they actually like the new 3D Sonic games, and I actually agree with you. However, I don't feel like in this day and age, the two games are comparable. And so a lot of people are like, oh, hey, this is like where all Sonic games should be. I personally do not subscribe to that idea. I think that idea is kind of bollocks. I think that is completely ridiculous. And I think it's fine that we have two different versions of Sonic. And I'm actually very thankful that we actually got this new Sonic, because every single stage has something new in it, just like the old classics. Every single section of the game just feels new and unique. Every single part of the stage as well. Like, it just keeps everything up that was so great about the classics and just does it again. And it's unfortunate that some of those retro elements, like I said, just kind of end up hurting the game overall. But as an entire experience itself, it's unlike anything else that we're going to get, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I really hope that we can get more momentum platformers, because, unfortunate to say, this game is absolutely fantastic, and so it would probably kick any other momentum platformers that showed up in the rear if they tried to do this sort of thing. But, it is just one of those things to where we just don't have a big competition for it. So, it's actually cool to see this type of game come back, because it's also a genre that just isn't around very much anymore. So, yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. And also, if you end up liking my content, you can help out on Patreon. $1 ends up helping out a ton, or more, of course, if you want to end up doing more. You can also end up checking out our broken chat box at Discord, which is an open Discord that we end up chatting about video games and stuff like that. And if you want to talk about Sonic, go ahead and jump in there, because I'm always willing to talk about Sonic. I will talk about Sonic all freaking day. I am kind of a fanboy for Sonic, although I will admit that most Sonic games are not particularly amazing, which is unfortunate. Thank God this one's good, because if this one would have been bad when it came out, oh god, we never would have heard the end of it. That would have been the end of Sonic, I think. Like, it just would have killed it in the mainstream market. But thankfully, game's absolutely amazing. It's worth it. By the way, it's only like $20 or something like that as well. I normally don't mention price points, but a lot of people have asked me about the price tag. For some reason, they're too lazy to go look it up. It's $20 friggin'. It was really, really cheap on launch and everything. So yeah, I ended up picking up at launch and had a discount and everything. Like, this game, it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. If you like platformers, or you like Sonic, or you like both, of course. Obviously, if you like Sonic, you're going to like platformers. Then yeah, go ahead and give it a shot. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's a game that I'm going to consider a classic from forever, basically. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And I'm going to play this for about 30 more minutes, because like I said, I'd like to play it for about an hour. Bye.